It was one of those cold, cruel winter nights when the world felt silent, except for the wind whispering through the empty streets. The city lights flickered in puddles, reflecting the broken rhythm of life itself. Daniel Hayes, a single dad with 2 kids, trudged down the dimly lit sidewalk with a paper bag clutched in his hand, their dinner for the night. The bag was light, too light, because it was the last meal he could afford until his next paycheck. And even that, he wasn't sure would come. He'd lost his job 2 weeks ago, bills were piling up, and every night he pretended to his children that everything was fine. But inside, he was breaking. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness still matters and that second chances can change lives, please take a second to like this video, comment below, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep telling stories that remind the world of the power of compassion. As Daniel walked down the street, his daughter Lily tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, that lady looks cold," she said softly, pointing toward a woman sitting near the entrance of a closed bakery. The woman was huddled on the sidewalk, her arms wrapped tightly around a small boy who looked no older than 5. Her face was pale, her eyes red, and her clothes were too thin for the freezing night. Daniel stopped, his heart twisting. He recognized the look, the kind of quiet desperation that comes when you've lost everything. For a moment, he hesitated. He didn't have enough for his own family. The small brown bag in his hand held 2 sandwiches and a cup of hot soup. That was all. His mind screamed logic. You can't afford this. You need to feed your kids. But then he looked at his daughter's eyes, wide, innocent, and full of empathy, and he knew what he had to do. He knelt beside the woman, offering her the bag. "Here," he said quietly. "It's warm." The woman looked up in shock, her lips trembling. "I can't. Please, you have children," she whispered. But Daniel smiled faintly. "We'll be okay," he lied. "You need it more." She took the bag slowly, tears filling her eyes. She whispered a faint thank you, holding the food as though it were gold. Daniel stood up, squeezing his daughter's hand, and walked away before she could say another word. That night, back at their small apartment, Daniel sat in the dark as his kids slept. He felt both empty and full. Empty because he had nothing left, full because, despite it all, he had done something right. He reminded himself that no act of kindness was ever wasted, even when the world seemed blind to it. But as he stared at the unpaid bills on the table and the eviction notice hanging from the door, hope felt like a fragile thing, ready to shatter at any moment. The next morning, Daniel woke to a soft knock at the door. He rubbed his tired eyes and opened it, expecting perhaps the landlord again. Instead, what he saw left him speechless. Parked outside his small apartment complex was a sleek black limousine, its windows tinted, engine quietly humming in the cold morning air. A man in a black suit stood by the car, his expression serious yet respectful. "Mr. Hayes?" the man asked. "Yes," Daniel replied, confused. "Someone would like to see you." Before Daniel could respond, the car door opened, and a woman stepped out, dressed in an elegant coat, her hair neatly styled, her face calm but familiar. Daniel froze. It was her, the woman from the street. But she didn't look cold or broken now. She looked powerful, poised, and confident. The woman smiled gently as she approached him. "I owe you an apology," she said softly. "And perhaps a story." Daniel didn't know what to say. The woman introduced herself as Claire Donovan, the CEO of one of the city's largest food corporations. The previous night, she had disguised herself as a struggling mother as part of an undercover initiative to understand homelessness firsthand, a project that had unexpectedly turned personal. Her company had been criticized for not doing enough for the poor, and she wanted to see the truth with her own eyes. But what she hadn't expected was to encounter a man who would give away his last meal to a stranger without hesitation. That Claire's voice trembled as she spoke. "I saw the way you looked at your children, the way you didn't hesitate to help me, even when you had nothing. I didn't forget that. I couldn't." She handed him an envelope. Inside was a check, enough to clear his debts, pay his rent for a year, and give him a fresh start. Daniel stared at it, stunned. I can't accept this," he murmured, but Claire insisted. "You already gave me something far more valuable," she said. "You reminded me of what kindness looks like when the cameras aren't watching. You reminded me what humanity means." Overwhelmed, Daniel's eyes filled with tears. His daughter peeked from behind him, clutching her little brother's hand. Claire smiled at them warmly. "I'd also like to offer you a job, Daniel," she continued. "We need someone like you in our company, someone with heart." That day marked a new beginning for Daniel Hayes. He went from a struggling single father to a respected operations manager at Claire's company. His dedication, honesty, and humility earned him not just a paycheck, but the respect of everyone around him. Yet he never forgot the night he gave away that meal, nor the woman who taught him that sometimes, when you give your last dollar, life finds a way to give back in ways you could never imagine. Weeks later, Daniel took his kids downtown to the same spot where he had first met Claire. He brought with him 3 paper bags filled with warm sandwiches and soup. As they handed them out to those in need, Lily looked up and asked, "Daddy, do you think kindness always comes back?" Daniel smiled, watching the snow fall gently on the quiet street. "Maybe not always," he said, "but when it does, it changes everything." From that day forward, Daniel made it his mission to feed at least one hungry soul every week. Sometimes it was a man sleeping under a bridge, sometimes a mother with children, sometimes someone who just needed to know they weren't invisible. Word of his quiet acts spread, and soon others joined in. The small ripple of kindness he started that night became a wave that touched hundreds of lives. Months later, during a company event, Claire shared Daniel's story with her employees. She spoke not of wealth or success, but of heart, the kind that changes lives with simple compassion. "He didn't feed me because I was rich," she said. "He fed me because he saw me as human." The entire room fell silent, and many wiped away tears. Daniel, sitting in the back, couldn't believe how far things had come. He thought about those dark days when hope seemed impossible, when the world felt heavy and unfair. And yet, in one selfless act, he had unknowingly changed his fate, and the fate of many others. Life didn't become perfect overnight, but Daniel had something more powerful than money: purpose. He finally understood that sometimes the hardest roads lead to the brightest destinations. The world had taken almost everything from him, but it gave him something more profound in return: the realization that kindness is never wasted, even when it feels like no one is watching. The next time you see someone in need, remember Daniel Hayes. Remember the single dad who spent his last dollar feeding a stranger and ended up feeding hope to an entire community. Because in a world that often feels cold and cruel, it's people like him, and perhaps people like you, who make it warmer.